Madam Chairman, I just ask if I may, we've gotten a request that the people on the video can't hear because of ambient noise. So if everybody just really keeps it down, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Open it up. I will turn it over to Tony, our executive director. Public comment.
Okay, yes, we do have two. First is Imran Ansari, Political Director for Long Island Federation of Labor. Yeah, please.
Are there any rules around?
I'm sorry, yes, there's a 3-minute limit.
Okay. The floor opens up to that.
So, hi everyone, my name is Imran Ansari, Political Director of the Long Island Federation of Labor, representing 250,000 union members and their families. I'm here to speak in support of recapturing benefits on the Harts Mountain project. Harts Mountain has demonstrated that they do not need Suffolk County taxpayer money. IDA incentives are meant to deliver economic activity that would not occur without the incentives provided. They have now shown on 2 separate occasions that that is not the case with this project. As an agency whose mission is to increase employment opportunities and add to the quality of life for the residents of Suffolk County, you bear a tremendous responsibility to make sound investments with the public's money. Section 858 of General Municipal Law designates that the purposes and powers of the agency are to advance the job opportunities, health, general prosperity, and economic welfare of the people of the state of New York. Harts Mountain has made it obvious that they will take money out of our community rather than bringing prosperity back in. They have repeatedly taken steps to award work to contractors from other regions and other states. Harts Mountain's focus is their bottom line rather than the enhancement of the communities on Long Island. As a Suffolk County taxpayer and on behalf of the Long Island Union Movement, I urge the body to recapture benefits of Harts Mountain on the remainder of the Pine Lawn Road project.
Thank you. Next, we have Nassau's second building trades, although there's no name, I assume it's Grant.
I was hoping Maddie would get here, but it's going to be me. So I apologize.
State your name.
Sure. Grant Newberger, Nassau Suffolk Building Trades. We represent the 36 different unions in the construction industry here on Long Island, and we're comprised of 65,000 members, all local residents. I'd like to just echo the sentiments made by my colleague from the Long Island Federation of Labor regarding Harts Mountain. You know, I will be a little less articulate than my colleague, but if the purpose is to create jobs and a promise is made and now we're saying that number is going to be reduced, you know, I just want to reiterate that we want to put our members to work and we want to create jobs, and that's what we're trying to do. I'd also like to comment regarding the bids portal on the Long Island First policy. I know that there's not a specific deadline that is attached to and I apologize if I'm forgetting the exact language, but I know the bids have to be open for what's defined as a reasonable amount of time. And I noticed on one, I think it was a painting bid that was only open for 7 days. And so, you know, if we see it once it's been posted for a day or two, and then I get it to Singapore contractors, and they only have a couple of days to respond on what could potentially be a multi-million-dollar bid, I don't think that's necessarily a reasonable amount of time. And so I just like that to be noted. Thank you.
Are there any others that would like to speak? Please be your name.
Seeing none, we will close the comment period. Move on to new business.
Thank you, Sarah. So the first only application, new applications, EDA Comac LLC, requesting approval, initial approval for a lease transaction. So the company is a multifamily rental housing and for sale housing developments. This is will be 55 and older rental community, senior community. The proposed facility will be an 86 unit facility, of which 74 units will be market rate and 12 units of affordable housing, 6 units affordable at 80% NOI and then 6 workforce units at 120%. In addition, for the town code, the town of Huntington, the applicant will contribute $400,000 to the town's affordable housing trust and agency fund. This was an arrangement that they had already in place with the town when they were doing their land use approvals. The complex involves construction of 8 buildings totaling almost 134,000 square feet. Includes a clubhouse, outdoor recreation spaces, and common area. Yeah, land currently is vacant land about 7.6 million. So the total project cost is about 58 million. And then, so the real criteria for doing this is really the availability of the increasing the housing stock in the county, not necessarily the jobs. They do show 2 additional jobs that will be on site. And also, we'd also like to point out, so that back in their corporate offices, usually when do additional housing developments, they may also be increasing their headquarters employment or managing, being able to manage the additional property. So with that, we have. So how are we going to what's the do Kevin first or?
Probably.
I guess maybe we'll just, since Peter Curry and Stephen Krieger and David Berman are already at the table, we'll have them, so the applicant speak.
Certainly. Peter Curry, Farrell Fritz, 400 Arsenal Plaza, Uniondale, New York, 11556. I'm flanked by Stephen Krieger and David Berman from B2K Development. The project is called Sutton Landing at Comac. The applicant is affiliated with B2K Development, which was formerly known as the Engel Berman Group. The Engel Berman Group has developed projects throughout Long Island and in other regions of the country. Engel Berman previously received economic benefits from the Suffolk County IDA with regard to an assisted living project in East Northport several years ago, with Bristol at East Northport, which has been an extremely successful project. And I'd like Stephen Krieger to speak a little bit more about that success.
Sure. So the Bristol East Northport, believe it or not, is the most successful Bristol that we've ever built on Long Island. And thanks to the help of the Suffolk County IDA, when I say successful, I'm talking about occupancy wise. We typically run that building between 95% and 100%. In addition to that, I think we far exceed employment goals that we have and obligations that we have with the IDA. We have over 80 full-time employees at that building. We've got other, just so you know what we tend to build with the healthcare today is Sutton Lane. We have Sutton Lane that we did in Brookhaven on 25. It's another Sutton Lane. It's a rental 55 and that community. And several of those communities, most different ideas that are idea. So we've done those the Bristols that we built on the assisted living communities that we continue to own and operate. Those have also been done. We appreciate your time today.
Maybe you could explain a little bit about what's trafficking between this particular.
Sure. So this parcel is right adjacent across the street from the hamlet. It's right next door to the. It's a vacant field right now, adjacent to that JCC over there, vacant land, and there's not really a rental in that area. Those units across the street are for sale. Down the block, I think there's another fountain gate that's being built, which is also for sale for seniors. So there's not a lot of choices to seniors on the four-rent side. A lot of the seniors now are wanting to sell their homes. We continue to live in the communities that they help to build on Long Island, and they want to be close to the restaurants they love. They want to be close to the shops they love. They want to be close to the doctors that they frequent. They want to be close to, where their life is. They want to continue their life.
but they want to have a much more easier lifestyle where they don't have to take care of the snow removal, take care of the landscape, and take care of the maintenance of their homes. So we're seeing that when we build these communities, there's a tremendous need and there's a tremendous demand for what we can do. The project is 86 units. 6 units will be set aside as affordable, 6 units set aside as workforce. And in the land use process with the town of Huntington, the town of Huntington required that certain funds, $400,000, be delivered to the Community Development Agency. Huntington is using those funds for a variety of housing related purposes, not all related to construction, but some to assist people who are unable to make improvements in their homes or make rental payments. So they're using it for a variety of purposes. I think Huntington's been doing that for a pretty long period of time. This is a 55 and over rental community that's being proposed. It will include clubhouse, outdoor recreation, and other amenities. It's a very amenitized community. It will also aim to integrate this community with other social events in the surrounding communities. As Steve said, it's currently vacant land, and these are 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom rental apartments. Each will have a dedicated garage of about 200 additional square feet. So there's a huge consumer demand at this stage of the game. I can personally attest to this. Before I got here this morning, I was in the middle of moving, wearing a sweatshirt. When I leave here, I will take off this mufti, go back to the house and continue to move since we're out of the house by tonight. I tried to find a rental community. It took me a few months to actually find something that I could rent because I wanted to stay near the town of Huntington on Long Island. And so this community would have been great for me, but it's not timely. So I understand the need for housing. There just is not enough rental housing stock of all the different providers, from affordable to luxury, and all of these types of rental units are important to the economic status of Long Island, keeping it as it is. We need people who can reach out, or developers who can reach out to all income groups. All income groups are looking for rental housing on Long Island, and there is a significant shortfall, as I think you're aware. Also, this project will have larger units up to 1,700 feet. Right now, I think one of the things that a lot of the other developers do is shrinking the size of their units. It's very difficult to find units that exceed 1,000 feet. So anybody who has who's downsizing from a house like me, or just has more personal effects, it's very difficult to find something that are 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and that can meet that need. There are low vacancy rates in the Long Island market, certainly in Suffolk County, also in Nassau County. They just never seem to increase no matter what new product comes on. There just there's nowhere near enough product to meet Long Island's need for diverse housing, which includes rental as well as for sale housing. We still, to this day, think that there is a need for additional 100,000 units of rental housing, and projects like this, well, it's a small project. Every little additional unit counts. So I think it's very important that we approve this type of project. The development is anticipated to generate between 150 and 185 construction jobs, plus 2 full-time jobs. Project costs, as described by Tony, just under $58 million. The anticipated construction schedule is 30 months. With the application, we submitted an economic and fiscal analysis from the MRB group. Thought that we should let you know the economic effect of the construction and operation of the project. And based upon the project cost we gave MRB, they determined that the jobs resulting from the construction were approximately 182 jobs, but also 90 indirect and induced jobs, and that the overall economic impact of construction for the personnel side can exceed $17.7 million. The annual operation of the project is anticipated to result in increased employment of 38 individuals, and resulting annual wages of just over $2 million per year. So in the jobs on site, the annual salaries are approximately $60,000 plus benefit. And I understand that you've been hearing from the National Development Council in regard to the pilot and the other economic benefits of the project. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Kevin Brems. But before I do that, I would suggest that I would state that we would be looking for mortgage tax abatement, sales tax abatement, and a pilot. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board. Curry did a very thorough overview of the proposed project. Before I go into the project and the need for financial incentives through the IDA, just summarize our assignment is to review the application, review the financial model by the developer, and determine the need for financial assistance, and then to further comment on the sizing of the financial assistance with respect to the terms, so that we determine that the financial assistance is necessary to achieve financial feasibility without providing more assistance than is necessary. So if you could advance to the next one after that. Next one after that. Okay, as Mr. Curry mentioned, this is a 74 unit mixed income senior development, 55 and over. I'm sorry, it's 86. 74 market rate, 12 workforce. And the workforce was something that was worked between the applicant and the town of Huntington in terms of their workforce housing requirement. So it was reported that they reached an agreement as part of planning board agreement of approval, six workforce at 80% of AMI and 6 workforce at 120% of area median income. Development budget's $57 million. First thing I looked at, and I'd asked the applicants to further substantiate that budget. That's on a per unit basis. It's a very considerable budget, equivalent to $727,000 per unit. Now, these are not your typical rental units. The applicant is seeking to respond to the marketplace for larger rental units for seniors. So they're substantially larger than what is typical in the marketplace for senior rental housing. Units as high as 1,700, most of the 2 bedrooms at 1,400. So again, 74 market, 12 workforce, and this is structured with a pretty typical 65% debt equity structure. So a substantial amount of investment at 35% with 65% of the project being financed. In addition to the 12 workforce units, the applicant reportedly is also paying a $400,000 fee to the housing fund for the town of Huntington. Next slide, please. And you saw some of the renderings, very fine quality finishes. And again, not only are they large, this is very not typical where each of the units get a garage. So for those seniors downsizing, they can downsize, but it's hard to downsize into a 700 or 800 square foot unit. They provide a larger unit for those going from a owned unit into a rental unit. Next slide. Okay, in terms of the need for payment in lieu of taxes, because these units are larger, because they're going to rent for a lot higher, the average market rate rent is $4,200. So it's larger units, larger income. Because it's a higher income, the as complete taxes is very significant. Most of the rental developments that I've presented to you in the last few years, the as complete taxes are coming in somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000. This is $9,300 a unit. $9,300 when you put into their pro forma
with their workforce rents and even their market rate rents, they're barely cash flow. And it doesn't meet the debt coverage ratios or any of the return metrics required by any investment partners for this kind of development. So when you plug in the as complete taxes at 9,300, it doesn't work. So what we have, and this is consistent with a pilot for other residential developments, is a 15-year pilot. It starts at a 90% abatement and it burns off over the subsequent years. So in this year, in this particular slide, we present the operations in what is expected to be the stabilized year. What is expected to be the same stabilized year is year 3. Might reach stabilization at year 2. But in year 2, where the taxes are 263, that's still equivalent to 2,700. Still a fairly respectable tax per unit. It allows for the development to reach a debt coverage ratio that meets the lender's matrix above 1.20. And their returns, I might add, are fairly modest for this kind of undertaking, but acceptable based upon the strength of the marketplace and looking forward to the Long Island marketplace, the Suffolk County marketplace. So the pilot summary, right? So it's a 15-year schedule. Again, it starts at 90%. The average pilot paid during the 15 years, during the term of the pilot, is $476,000. That's equivalent to $5,500. Again, for a rental unit, that's still a fairly significant tax on a per unit basis. So that average annual during those 15 years, 476, is more than a 3-time multiplier of the existing taxes right now. So the existing taxes right now is 155. So based upon the investment, you have a more than a 3-fold increase in taxes. And as a senior development, there aren't any impact to the schools. Next slide, please. So over the term of the pilot, there's 4.9 million in savings, but the pilot is 7.1. So what is being paid in pilot far exceeds the savings provided to the project itself. And again, the average amount is 476, equivalent to 5,500. Next slide, please. This just shows that increment growing every year. And then, of course, after the term, after 15 years, it goes to full taxes. In terms of public and private cost benefit analysis, there's a total of $7 million in assistance based upon the pilot savings or real estate tax savings, as well as the exemptions on the sales tax and the mortgage recording tax. However, a pilot over the 15-year period is 7.1. There's also the affordable fee that they're going to pay to the town, and we value the value of the affordable housing, the difference between market rate and affordable, and we valued that, and we estimated that at $2.3 million. So the public benefit in terms of the real estate taxes paid, the value of the affordable housing, plus the fee paid to the town, add up to 9.8, a full $2.8 million more than the savings provided to the project itself. Scurry mentioned on the short-term construction jobs of 185 and 2 full-time. And then, as I might add, this type of product is really important for the local economy as a means of keeping the seniors here, and obviously high-income seniors, of keeping them here instead of them moving off of the island. But this is the kind of product that is necessary. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Public information, one of the principles in this application, myself, sort of one of them, together some directives to council.
Yes.
Do you see a conflict with that?
No, Kevin already explained it to me in detail. There's no financial relationship. So thank you for bringing that up. That hasn't really been happening in certain branches, but thank you. There's no conflict.
A couple of questions. Number one, the agreement with the town regarding the $400,000 payment, how did that come about in negotiations?
It's actually part of the code that there's a requirement of about 20% affordability, and then 25% of that can be paid in cash, $100,000 per unit, 4 units, so you guys $1,000.
So could it have been negotiated that
It's not negotiated, it's something that's
the town required?
that's something that the town allows us to do, and it's a rule, it's a calculation. So it's not something that we negotiate, it gives the person on the affordable housing side the ability to buy down and give them cash and do it buying affordable houses.
So would it be possible to?
The code gives us a choice. As the code, yeah.
Regarding the affordable portion, is that 55 dollars?
Yes.
As we well know, really the age group that appeals to affordable housing is the younger age group that the idea a lot of times provides jobs for that helps them get started in the economic cycle of being able to maintain on Long Island, not a group that's 55 and older, but you're saying that age restriction applies to the affordable.
Yes, we need to hold these age restricted communities. The affordability part is based on that we see.
And I guess my last question is, why specifically go with just the age restricted 55 and older? Is there resistance from
That's how the town zone property for us. We typically, when we're going for rezoning on a parcel, we would like to not have it age restricted. A lot of times, a lot of the towns and a lot of the municipalities say to us that there are too many kids in the school, which they don't see. So they require us to accommodate that the kids and have to just not on the ground, trying to make the argument that there's no school kids that maintain this. So we have studies, there's a study that's been done, and there's a lot of studies that have been done with that. We're trying to get that message out, and in some of them that we're doing now, they are non-age restricted.
So hopefully you understand our particular position, which is even though it's not creating a lot of jobs, which is one of our primary goals, one thing we can sort of go past if there's an affordable portion of it that really meets the demand for the younger population. That's, so we try to do sometimes a trade-off. If we can't get the jobs, we increase the amount of requests for regarding the affordable portion of it, so that we sort of at least satisfy that lower end of what
It's its own requirement. But I would like to also point out that Long Island needs to deal with all of its demographics, income-wise and age-wise, to provide additional housing for seniors to allow them to stay on Long Island, even those who are less wealthy than others. I think it's valuable for Long Island. And I think it was a good idea for the town to decide this, that despite the fact that it's over 55, we need those over 55 citizens whose incomes are not as great as others.
And I fully understand that, the senior population, knowing that it is an expensive place to live. But also we're charged with trying to keep the economic cycle of Long Island going by keeping younger people here. I have 3 children, of which 2 no longer live on Long Island. Third one probably won't shortly. So if we can't keep that economic engine going, where we keep the younger people here in affordable housing as they work their way up the economic platform to get to a point where they can buy somebody else's house, that becomes an important part of the equation.
I think you're making Steve's argument.
We agree with you. We agree with what you just said.
That they would like to do that also.
It wasn't an option. We agree we weren't able to get that done.
So you mentioned that in the affordability aspect, we have 6 years of workforce and 6 years of the affordable is 80% of the workforce is 28%. Can you please give us an example?
I'm not sure I know the exact rent. It's a stated rent based on that affordability requirement.
It's based on the 2022.
Yeah, so the rents are based upon the area median, which is quite high, right?
shot up to, they're now 146,000. So these eligible rents at these various income targets have become quite high. So based upon the 80% AMI, the eligible rents are 2,600, approximately 2,600. At 120% of AMI, the rents are 3,950. 3,950 is a 7% reduction below the market rate units at 250.
They're all two bedrooms, right? And they're all exactly the same, the affordable units and the regular units?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
With the, I mean, I'm really in agreement with the party about that $400,000. No way they're going to let you put in the units or financially feasible to do that.
I think you're encouraged by the towns that continue to.
They would like to have administrative side of the towns. I'm but you be I'm telling you, they would like to have both. They would like to have money to fund and everything else.
It also makes it less feasible.
What's your, for the affordable units, what's the selection? How do you select the people? Do you get them from the agency?
No, that's done through the town's community development. And there's a lottery. The town has a public lottery. They do advertisements in the papers. And the town does that. For the record, I'm a member of the housing park. Which are players to buy for housing park.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't see.
No, same. So no.
Well, it's a very good. It's not to be something. So construction jobs. There's only 200 jobs for the Here, 38, excellent. I'm not sure what exactly that means. We really, I don't, we didn't. Really it's just, it's kind of a question. Is this? I understand. Experience, but we most of the permanent jobs to be outside of the meaning, assuming maybe the landscaper has hired, maybe the restaurant on the street, hires somebody else. But is that information really? Should we be looking at it?
It's used in these well-known and established economic reports, economic methods, RIMS and in-plan. So they will include that in there, but with the IDA, it's very difficult. Like you just said, how would we know if the landscaper requires an additional individual? It would be hard for us to quantify that. So it's good in the beginning to get the projection out there based on well-established formulas in these models, but the requirement for the IDA is to track the direct jobs of a facility.
That's what
Thank you.
Kevin, I know in your report and in what you just presented, it said there's no undue investment for this project based on the cost of it. I was wondering if you could put the context, because we haven't done a ton of these in the 2+ years that I've been a member of the board. And while I realize that the mortgage tax and the sales tax are up front and the property taxes over time, the total aid is about 12% of the cost of the project. Right off the bat, without context, that seems rather high to me. Can you put that number in context for me to other projects or thoughts?
12% as a percentage of costs is from an IDA financial assistance package. It's not a terribly high number in terms of percentage of costs. Right now, there's legislation before New York State, and it's actually passed. It hasn't been implemented. And that legislation pertains to IDA assistance. That if there's more than 30% of the project costs in IDA benefits, that's going to trigger prevailing wage requirements. So based upon that legislation, anything that exceeds 20% and get into the 30% of project costs, that's high. 12% as a percentage of project. I look at dozens of these every year throughout New York State. And 12% as a percentage of project costs is not relative to other developments.
Right, not all that high statewide, but the last report that Friends from Newsday published and we read, some counties paying the least amount per job, and you can look at that as it good or as it bad, right? But so that might be norm elsewhere. It's just I was trying to get context here. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just that jumped out as something that looked a little bit different.
Anything beyond 20 is getting high. 12% is pretty standard, or it's certainly not unreasonable.
So the other thing, and this doesn't make me against this, it's just something that I've been thinking about it since I've seen this application, is that I understand the need for 55 and older housing. And I understand that we don't have enough housing for anybody, young, old, any of that. And I understand that the market has designated, you said in your report, and I believe in the other report as well, that this type of unit is what's been desired. But the rents are high. So there's no question that we need this type of housing, but what I'm just trying to wrap my head around is this project is expensive somewhat by design and somewhat by the geography of where you're building it, right? Right. And the geography you cannot choose, the design you can. So it seems like we're hoping to build a community for mostly affluent people. And this is, even that 120%, and you're right, that number has jumped up for the AMI, even though 120%. It's like, listen, the only frame of reference I have is the mortgage I pay, and it doesn't.
Those rents are a lot higher.
It doesn't look like that. So that's the part. And I don't know if I'm asking you a question. I'm just saying when I look at this and I have pause, it's because it seems like that's the situation, and I know people will move into this. That's not a question. If I didn't ask a question, but if you want to, Chair, please.
The only thing we would say is that David and I have been doing this for many time, and one of the things that we get in every one of these developers we do is we need a much bigger unit coming out of a house, so we need a much bigger unit. We want to have the grandkids sleep over, want to have some, and that's the answer.
No, I don't have any question that at these rates, if you build it, and you guys have built great stuff along Long Island, that people will rent all of these facilities. It's just, it's hard for me to believe that this keeps people that couldn't afford to stay here. It's keeping people that want to change how they stay here. And I don't think that that's bad. It's just different.
Understand that them having done that then opens up their housing for someone else to acquire. And it has a ripple effect. It's not just those renters, and we limit the discussion to that. What happens to their house? They sell it to somebody else. That person has sold their house to somebody else. So the ripple effect is throughout the economy is far greater than.
Well, that's why I said doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a different state. That's
I appreciate you're struggling with this issue because you look at these rents and undoubtedly there are going to be high income individuals going into this that are probably leaving a home that they own into a rented house. But the fact of the matter is that the taxes are going to be paid by the developer. And you saw where the rents are, and you saw that, without the pilot, it doesn't meet the financial metrics. So the issue is that, that's very high rents. But in order for these development costs to be covered and the debt service to be covered and operating expenses to be covered without the pilot, those rents would be that much higher. So they would need to be in excess of $5,000 per unit. And then it becomes a challenge to be able to fill it once you're increasing it beyond what is already high rents.
No, and I get that, and listen, like I said, this is not about this particular applicant, just that developers have a choice. The reason they're here is because they have a choice to deploy their capital on the island, they have the choice to deploy their capital in other places, and they're doing that to the best of their ability. But at the same time, the design and the individuals that you're building it for is also a choice of the applicant. And that's just what I'm working with. Like I said, I'm not like adamantly against this. I was just trying to work my way through that thought process to when we build this, who goes into it and what public good have we served? And I realize the town of Huntington has a code. It gives you a choice. I would have probably made the same choice you did. My problem is not with the choice that you made. My problem is with this town of Huntington ordinance. Like, if I was a developer, of course I'll pay $100,000 a unit when they cost $672,000 a piece. So you made the only reasonable economic decision you can make. I have no fault with that. My fault is that I think this is a silly thing that the town of Huntington has done that's insufficient to solve a problem. Again, that's not the applicant's fault. I would have done the exact same thing if I was in their shoes.
So, one thing I don't know is the cost of running properties, being a landlord myself. Even though the rents are high, the bottom line is that the cost, someone's paying from their house, a lot of those costs, they're paying directly. Whether it's property taxes, living mortgage, a landscaper, pool guy, snowplower, somebody is paying those bills. And so you roll the whole thing up to rent, and then the landlord is paying all of that. So it may look high. This plus the business these days and building everything else. But you can't just look at it as the rent, especially because you're now not doing things because the landlord is, and he's paying for it as part of the lease. And especially as you get older, and unfortunately, we're all getting older, to not have to deal with all of that stuff on the house. And just make one phone call to the landlord and say, come over here, something broke, fix it. You don't have to run around and find an electrician, anybody else. Somebody else is doing it. And when you really look at all those costs, it actually makes a lot of sense for somebody to sell their house, move in, and let somebody else take care of it. Just very similar to what I'm assuming that one thing that people are really paying for is the one utilities.
And Chris, just to say it, I think we need to build something just like this. I'm not against this. And it's not your fault. I just wish there was more of the other types that were coming from this, and that there were more of those, because it doesn't mean that this is bad or unneeded. It just addresses a sliver of the issue of people who want to stay, who want to change their situation. Not, I think, people who can't stay. Again, that's not for the IDA to solve, I don't think, to some extent, and it's not for them to solve as developers either. That's
One thing I want to ask you, are these affordable units in perpetuity, or is there a time at which they'll go back to market? Yeah, I mean, one of the concerns I have, especially on the affordability component, is we're kind of meshing, the workforce units and affordable units together as if they're, all affordable and helping, maybe Long Island wouldn't be able to afford a unit here to stay here, other than go to other more affordable places. But if you really look at the difference between the market rate and workforce rate, I don't think you really attract anyone much different into those units. And even in the market report, it recognizes that the very same income brackets going to be going into those units. So, and I really see it as not 14% affordable workforce. It's really 6% affordable here. If I'm really basing it on numbers and what people afford.
6 units, 8%.
Yeah. So, so that's one thing. I really do think, the affordable number is much lower than what really is portrayed here. Obviously, I think everyone, based on what they've been saying, would like to see a higher percentage of affordable in these units. And just a point of clarification on the 30% in the state law,
That's not 30% of just IGA, right? It's 30% of the overall project, with any subsidies that come from taxpayer sources. So, it could be a portion of what you get from IDA benefit, it could be grants from the state, it could be soft costs through design, engineering, and all of that would be add up to 30% of the project. So, just saying that it's the IDA that would trigger that alone wasn't necessarily accurate, right? It's a accumulation of all. So I think that's an important point to make, because I don't know what the average percentage of subsidies that we give sometimes, but I think that 12% is a little higher than you see.
If I could interject on that for a second. If you were to talk about a project in Benton County, which would be fulfilling the same purpose as this, that project would probably be getting up to 20%, just because the taxes are so much higher there. So 12% is not a high number. Well, so just the next county over based upon the tax structure, you're going to see the same type of event where the unit cost, maybe the land acquisition is the same, unit cost is the same, financing is going to be the same, and the benefit will be higher there because it's located in Nassau County. So I don't think 12% is a high number at all. It's extremely low. I'll also tell you that when I review Nassau County transactions that I do, and I think you agree with this, you see that the pilot is often more than 41%. So what was the economic benefits of the pilot to be 43, 45, 47%, always under 50, but certainly higher than 41. So I have to put in context when you think that 12% is high. In my experience, in a lot of these, in Brookhaven, in Islip, Riverhead, and Nassau County, City of Long Beach, City of Glen Cove, 12% is not high.
And 12% is a little bit lower than all those other areas, because most of those other ideas, their terms are longer. So for residential developments, they're 20, in some cases higher than longer. So with a longer term, it's a shorter amount or a lower amount of savings.
And just to some more context of what Mr. Dienebetter was talking about as far as the target population, and when we're not creating jobs, which is really one of my main goals, it's always about the affordability. And it's about creating an environment where we can keep people here, whether it's young or old. I agree. Help keep seniors who are retiring and downsizing a home anymore because of retirement income. But it's really about targeting the population that otherwise would leave because of the affordability. And I think there's a choice by the developer here to create high-end, high-class units for really a wealthier population. And we're here basically, subsidizing tax base for more wealthier residents. And all across the line, we know taxes is what's pushing middle class residents out. And I just don't think there's enough units here to help target that population that not gonna be able to afford for $4,000 or $5,000 a month in rent, leaving as a result. Whereas the resident in retirement can still make over $150,000 a year and afford $4,000 to $5,000 a year. Well, they're not necessarily leaving because of affordability. Decide to stay here because they can afford to stay here. And we're still going to be losing the population that we really need to help us. And so I think this project does fall short in that regard. And as our purpose here is to provide a public benefit, I don't know that we're necessarily doing that for the population that we want to target. And if you're selling a home in Huntington, and it's a higher end home and mortgage is up there in that range already, you're probably paying $30,000 to $40,000 in taxes per year. So to move into a rental, even without the help, that's at $9,000. Still probably a lot cheaper than what you were paying before to do it. Not that I'm saying, again, it's not doing enough to really target the population that really will leave. So I would love to see higher percentage of affordable units. And again, I don't even really consider the workforce units as a part of that affordable package. It's really the same market. If I may just comment on that, there was a report, I forget the exact name of the report. Long Island Workforce Housing Ordinance report, 2010, somewhere around that. That report defined workforce of 60% to all the way up to 100%. Now, fact is that the area median income has kept increasing. The area median income is really high. It's up to 126. So the qualifying incomes and the qualifying rents have become one. So I think, and each of the towns from which these applications come from have different workforce and affordable housing policies as part of the plan board review. And in this case, the town of Huntington allows for up to 120% AMI. But as you can see, the qualifying incomes and the qualifying rents are quite high. So, and I think it's been the policy of this agency is to go along with the workforce house or housing requirements of the town. But I think for future consideration, you should look at the AMIs and those qualifying rents, and you make a determination of what you want to require with respect to workforce and affordable requirements as part of the package for financial assistance. In this case, it was just based upon the requirements town Huntington for their plan.
So, I'm sorry,
The AMI at 136, is that how many people?
That's based upon 4 persons. So all the rents are adjusted per household size and per the number of bedrooms.
so.
I'm not sure. I know at some point I read that you expected potential put shovels in the ground in April, based on. It sounds like you're kind of ready to put shovels in the ground. This is approved. Have you selected a general contractor? Have you already engaged with local businesses as far as construction?
We are our own general contractor. We have an affiliate company as a general contractor for us. So that's who we do as a general contractor.
And so I know you signed off on the first policies, so, but I know someone spoke earlier about a reasonable amount of time. What do you consider a reasonable amount of time to get both the business and opportunity to respond?
Minimum 4 weeks.
Just to see, it's a little bit frustrating just speaking from my own personal viewpoints. It's frustrating as an applicant comes with the hands tied by a local town that decides they want specific items in the project. And then we come as the savior to go ahead and apply the tax breaks to make the project good. It's frustrating because the IDAs statewide are putting not necessarily saying the town isn't, but the idea is right. We don't have them check. We try to do a faithful job to spend our tax dollars as efficiently as possible and subsidizing projects like yours, which, there's many of them that are very successful. But it's just frustrating from my personal, and I don't want to speak for the board, that we come and we're going to be the ones, yay or nay, about the project, but then again, we get the heat. And somebody says, well, you went ahead and you paid too much money because you're subsidizing high earners and you're not looking out for low earners. So, it's just a predicament. I stick in up here. We're here to help spur economic development. The one thing I do see as a positive is the fact that there's currently unused land money that is going to generate additional tax revenue, not as much as we want, and it's not going to provide obviously the jobs we want, and it's also not providing the affordable. But there is some positivity to the applicants' request. But it's just very frustrating when we get forward to the and project either goes or doesn't go.
Ken, if I may, I'm sorry, Simon.
That's okay.
That's safe feelings. But where I got to in the end is kind of where you got to again, saying is that I wish there were different things coming before us, but as the idea with the recipients of requests, and unfortunately, we're not driving the type of requests. So I agree with everything you said. The only reason I got to yes here was because it is a vacant piece of land. It will be better. It is something. It is not what I wish it to be, but I'm not. In my head, I view because I'm just not in the position to pick who comes to us. I wish we could drive more folks that were building the other stuff to us to help them, to drive them, because I want more housing that's at lower rents than this. Because I think I exist in the middle of the band that we've been talking about. People just starting out and certainly not eligible for this yet, despite the color of my hair. So I want to see more of that, but I agree with everything you said. So you said, I don't want to speak for the board. I can say I agree.
I was going to say that we had other companies come before us and we had the same dilemma. So this isn't something against you all. You do great work. We know that as your history. The other company, one of the other companies that came before us, they saw that we were unhappy with the affordability aspect of the project, and they came back with a couple more affordable units. And I think that's why maybe someone mentioned, I mean, if you could take the 400,000 and, incorporate it to put a couple of units there, affordable units. And we had no problem with it, passed right away. It's like Kevin said, it's a threefold. The job factor and the affordability. And you mentioned something else that was really good. But
I think Kevin mentioned that would cause this project to become unfinanceable. So anyway.
2 more units.
That's fine. The difference is now, I'm just going to say this, construction costs
I know.
are absolutely,
We built affordable.
and you know, are out of control. And I'll say one more thing, interest rates are out. So the costs for us, it's a two-edged sword that's just cutting. We lose money on all these.
What is the pleasure of the board? Okay. Is there a motion? Or a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any no's or abstentions?
I'm searching my conscience right now. Yes.
Madam Chairman and members of the board. Thank you.
Yes. We're gonna tax you, because that's what they want. Not the sales taxes. So no matter what the council is.
Next item,
No matter what the town says.
is Harts Mountain. Or unless we have any other new business? No, okay, so we'll go into old business, document processing, Harts Mountain Industries.
Thank you, Sam. Parks Mountain was developing the Open Space site. Situation of Pine Road, 2 buildings, about 400,000 square feet and about 670,000 square feet overall combined. Two buildings, so one was terminated and they paid capture the sale tax only about 517,000 late last year, early this year. And so leased the South building, which is about 670,000 square feet. And the requirement right now, the property tax abatement term is 20 years. And required to create 500 jobs in that, so to keep tax money. They're having difficulty leasing out the property. They have one tenant that's signed a lease, and it's a local pharmaceutical company taking almost 100,000 square feet. And many jobs there. So space is just starting to be built out now. So the uncertainty with the recapture and with the other tenants, as far as whether overall the building is going to create 500 jobs, creating an issue for the company. So it identifies the issue and came to the IDA rather than wait and have it all unfold. And if it doesn't happen, it ends up being messy, and we have to, deal with it then. They decided to come up front. The property tax abatement hasn't started yet. It's slated to start next tax year. So the proposal is to reduce the property tax term from 20 years to 15 years. And they'll still create 250 jobs. And then so when you recast the each year what the burn off is or what the reduction in the property tax benefit is, it changes from 3.75% to like 4.1%. So with all that said, the property tax reduction benefit that they would be not getting would be about $540,000. And so it's interesting to point out too that overall the project with this lot is 60% of the taxes is in the land value, and the land value is not abated. So just the improvements are, and that ends up being 40%. So it's like a 60-40 split. So the savings ends up being, if you recast it to 15 years, the savings ends up being about $2.5 million, or 14%. While that's occurring, they'll be paying about $15.4 million, or almost 86% of the taxes we normally pay. But overall, so when this was started projected out, like 3 or 4 years ago, we advised by the town of a certain, I think the per square foot tax amount would be like $2.27. Since it's $2.27 a square foot, it's coming in at like a little less than $1.80 a square foot. So between that and then the sales tax is much less than what they anticipated. Overall, the project is less. The actual benefits that they'll be getting is actually less than what was projected and estimated originally. So the project did receive some delays. They tried to be a good neighbor with this a club, a Melville residence. It's a owned condo unit development on Dashon Drive. They were concerned about truck traffic and all. So the parts spent almost a year in trying to, with the town and with the residents, to reconfigure the property so that the residents wouldn't be impacted by it. So, the market has changed. It wasn't a faulty market assumptions. It was the actual market change. So by the time now they're online, the building is built. Kelly and I visited the site. It's a warehouse. It's wonderful. It's completely inside. It's completely just cement floor and beams. So it's waiting to be leased out. They're having difficulty with again, with the potential of recapture if they find 500 jobs for the site. So I was just wondering, it's kind of a dilemma for the board. It is an active IDA project. So do we want to try to make it successful, or do we want to just not do that? And then you have to deal with what happens later on if they do not achieve 500 jobs. So And do you have any? Wexler, any, you see it that way?
I do. I see it. You and I have discussed this. Everything he said, I think is right on. Sorry, may I say?
So we have Jay Raddick in here, who you know from Hearts, and then Phil Halpern, they're
CBRE.
CBRE.
Commercial real estate.
Thank you, John. I think that was a very accurate assessment of the situation. Just to provide some background and context, we got these projects approved originally at the local level, and then also here for an abatement by the IDA on a spec basis. We had no tenants at the time. There were 2 buildings that were built in compliance with the Long Island First policy. The smaller of the 2 buildings, as Tony said, has been leased. It's occupied presently. At the direction of that client, the abatement for that building was terminated again at the direction of the tenant. Our efforts to lease the second building, and Mr. Halpern can get into that in more detail in a moment, have revealed that the appetite after some market influences and changes, and as Tony said, we lost about a year in trying to accommodate our residential neighbors by going to the county to get approval for a traffic signal on Pine Lawn. It was part of the project, and that did cost us quite some time. And we all know it's been some changes in the overall economy in any event the last couple of years. But the fact of the matter is, there doesn't seem to be the appetite for a occupancy of one large space by one user or maybe even 2 users. So we're offering to, we have for some time, as Mr. Halpern will say, but we've been offering to subdivide that larger building into smaller spaces. We did just sign a lease recently with 1 tenant. That tenant space is now being subdivided. There's work being done by a 100% local contractor out of Westbury, and so that tenant hopes to move in before too long. And we are talking other tenants, but the concern is with the 500 job requirement. If it was 1 tenant in that building, the tenant can control its own destiny easily. Even if there were 2 tenants in that building, each, maybe one would cover 300 jobs, one would cover 200, or split it 50-50, and maybe only one other person you got to worry about in terms of losing the overall abatement. But it appears we're going to need 4, maybe 5 tenants in that space. And then it just creates a situation in which each tenant is concerned that there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 other tenants that might not meet its requirement to create the aggregate number of jobs required by our documents, which, by the way, we are currently in compliance with. I mean, I know we don't have any tenants in the space yet, but we don't have any obligations yet either on the terms of the agreement. So fully in compliance right now. And that's why we think lowering the job requirement would make the space more attractive, make certainly reduce the risk to the tenants that other tenants in the space or in the building can't meet the job requirements. And obviously, as Tony said, we're willing to offset reduction in job creation with the reduction in benefits. That's certainly understandable that that's part of the deal. So, that's why we're here to request that of the board. And Mr. Hamilton here will give some description of our efforts to lease the property and the market for supply, competition, and what tenants are looking for relative to job creation.
Sure. Any questions before I? Okay, so Phil Halpern, I've been with CBRE, a commercial broker, since 1985 on Long Island. So, we've seen a couple of upturns and downturns in the market. We've all enjoyed in the past couple of years, certainly, an industrial boom. With COVID, we had a lot of interest in constructing industrial properties because of perceived growth in home delivery and last mile type of distribution. And we were hopeful, we were tasked with marketing this project by Hearts nationally, and we've done so. We've done a thorough national search for tenants, and the goal in the beginning, as was just stated, was to find a tenant for the entire building, and that's proved on Long Island not to be that easy for a 16,000 square foot tenant.
it seems the sweet spot here for these types of tenants is, let's say, 75 to 125,000 square feet. So we've since, decided, as Jay said, to reduce tenant sizing. We will divide the building into 4, 5, or 6 tenants, depending on what happens. I can tell you that in speaking with tenants that have interest in the building, the consistent trepidation and feedback that I get is, I understand you have a pilot in place, but if I sign a lease here and you haven't reached that threshold goal and never do reach it, then I won't have the benefit of the pilot. And quite frankly, their next statement is, and I can go to other buildings in Islip or Brookhaven that don't have that employee requirement, and the taxes are as low as 27 cents a square foot for brand new construction. So we're struggling. Everybody likes the building, tenants like the building. We're struggling with, let's say, getting over the hump with that employee requirement of 500. And by the way, I think that we're going to have many, many employees in the building. We're talking to tenants, some of which will certainly have 100 employees, and some may have more than 100 employees. The building, if they sign at least 20,000 square feet of office space, and they have lots of warehouse workers. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to have hundreds of employees in the building. We're having trouble getting tenants to commit to the building because there's uncertainty about pilot being in place because of that employee structure. So I think, and by the way, the reduction in taxes, the pilot directly benefit the employer, the firms that lease space. It's not a benefit part. It's an attraction to get the building leased and have good companies occupy space in Melville with certainly a large number of employees, anything from warehouse to full-time office employees. So it will be a good mixture of types of employees, and the interest is there. We just need to get the tenants over the hump that they're going to have a tax reduction that they would enjoy in another property.
Yeah, I'll echo what Mr. Halpern just said. We still think there's an opportunity to get 500 jobs there, or if not 500, something close to it. But it's just the certainty of a lower number that makes the project more attractive to prospective tenants. And then again, we're going to trade off some of the benefits.
So I wasn't around when this project was approved, and I know enough about leases that sure this is a something that lease. I'm not sure if the was back then when this was approved as to what the base rent was. And with a much lower tax number. So the situation could really be that the rents have risen since this project was approved. So parts the landlord is going to get this rent. And at the detriment of the taxes. You're asking for a reduction in taxes, but the rents since this was first contemplated going up. And that differential, you guys understand it's going to be the same. That differential may not be as great. The alternative is that the landlord pays the full taxes, but the rent is cheap. So, the tenant that's looking to come in that wants to get the tenant doesn't care whether it's low taxes or low rent. Or just a combination. The combination of the two is acceptable. But the tenant's fine with it. Doesn't necessarily care that the rent is higher and taxes are lower. I'm making myself clear. So that's a situation that that's where it's going. But there's always the end result, which is the rollback of the benefits to some extent. I don't necessarily think that should be a full rollback. I'm having a problem with the calculation. To me, it doesn't seem like it's enough that it's going from a 20-year pilot down to a 15-year.
Yeah, I wasn't sure that was a question or an observation.
Yeah, so again, if the rental when you were first contemplating this, because I'm still picking up because I don't know.
Yeah, I candidly don't remember.
You know, if it was $15 a square foot and the rental is up to, I know they're higher,
the issue is this, the amount of the pilot. If the pilot, the tenants are complaining about the pilot going from, I don't know, it's $1 to the square foot, starting off. Without these benefits, it's going up to another couple dollars a square foot. It really, the parts is in a no loss situation. Because your rents have already gone up. You may have to lower the rent back to equalize with the real estate taxes.
Yeah.
Well,
Address the rent.
I think net rents, Chris, as you know, are market driven, and there are rents in other areas in Suffolk County that are as high or higher than the Hart's rents, but those properties are more competitive because those IDA packages, whether it's an Islip or Brookhaven, are already set without this employee count issue. So Hart's rents are at, or as I said, lower than many other, it's a market driven factor. So if someone in Brookhaven has similar or even higher rents in some cases, but taxes that are a third or 25% of what Hart's is paying, to just say, well, lower your rents to make it equal. It's not market. That's not how, real estate buildings are leased. It puts Hart's at a very competitive disadvantage. And tenants want to be in Melville. They'd like to be there because it's a great landing spot to distribute on Long Island. It's just difficult to get tenants to commit with the uncertainty of the pilot. But our rents aren't higher than any other landlords across Long Island. It is.
Thank you. Sir, I forget your name.
Phil Halpert.
So, thank you. So my struggle with this has been that as a board, we rely on applicant information and applicant guidance because I'm not a real estate expert and I'm not a developer. I'm not somebody who's building warehouses and everything else. So we rely on that and rely on the expertise of our consultants. And Mr. Rankin, with the organization that you represent, those assertions have not borne themselves out, right? So the first building that you gave up the IDA benefits on, you were able to get a rent that would pay the full taxes on the building. And at the time, the reason for those benefits was we didn't think that was possible, and it was possible. So now we shifted it to one building, and we said, all right, we can keep those jobs. And now we're here a second time saying, but we can't keep those jobs. So the difficulty for me is that this isn't a matter of, I want to be super clear, this is a matter of accuracy, not honesty. I'm not suggesting that it's accuracy. I don't think the assertions have been accurate. No, Bill, for a couple of questions. You said that struggling to rent this building because it has IDA benefits against buildings that don't.
No, other buildings that have IDA benefits without the employee count requirement. So that's the struggle is.
But where are you getting IDA benefits without an employee?
Brookhaven developers have IDA benefits without.
Okay. That's a whole of this. We approved sites since I've been here where multiple tenants are in an industrial warehouse facility, albeit on a much smaller scale than this one. So I guess my question is, this is an elimination of the risk, it's mitigation of the risk, because whatever tenant signs up is signing up for a job responsibility, right? You're just asking for a lower job responsibility. And for me, I agree with what Chris said that, and Josh, don't call me Mr. Price. I agree with what Chris said that the reduction in jobs is about 50%. Is that accurate? Am I saying that correctly?
That's correct.
And I know that this is IDA policy and everything's set, but the reduction in the tax favor is now 50%. And for me, this just feels like a little bit, and forgive the term, a little bit of choose your own adventure development. Like I need the benefits if I need them. If I don't, I'll get rid of them. But I like to have them. And then it's not that way, but I need them another way. And that makes it hard for me to understand how I can say with certainty that this is the right number of jobs for this building. And I know since you come before us, the market has changed dramatically in the entire time of you building these projects. So I know I didn't ask you a question, but if you'd like to respond to my non-question, please do.
I'll say we're not really choosing our own adventure in the sense that we would do away with the benefits on this building. We did on the other building. Again, that was not it was the direction of our tenant who chose to do that for its own reasons. Here, we still think that there's a lot of appeal to the benefits that the IDA can provide. We think it's attractive to prospective tenants. And I think, would help the project. And if we're all lucky, if we can get this reduction through, then we may end up getting, as I said, far more jobs than 250 plus a reduction in the benefits, which makes everybody happy. But that's our goal and our objective. It has been from the start. But by virtue of the fact that really the only factor that changes the market, it just seems that there's just not an appetite for one tenant here or even two. And the multiplicity of tenants creates that complexity. So we're not looking to do away with it. We're just looking to modify it. And if it's the board's desire, we have further discussions with the staff about the nature of the modification. That I suppose, but the request before you is just to make this more attractive to the tenants.
Right, and Mr. Redkin, I understand that the tenant in the other building chose to give it up, but the flip side of that is that it's not like you gave them the same rent. They're paying higher rent intentionally because they didn't want the job application. So that means that for whomever that tenant is, whatever business they run, their business was capable of paying the full taxes and the rent you demand to pay those without the benefits. So it undercuts the need.
Yeah, but that tenant is a unique tenant. I mean, I think we all know that tenant, and it's a tenant that is unique in the marketplace, that pays higher rents than other tenants typically do. Really it's a tenant that sets the market. That tenant has exhausted, as far as we know, its appetite for space in the area. They're not looking for space, at least in our building, in our remaining building. So I think, I get it, but I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair comparison.
If they're setting the market, it's bringing all the other rents.
Yeah, they also signed a lease a few years ago. So it's different circumstances. I would say circumstances have changed. I don't think that they are bringing the rents up for Mr. Public. I may be wrong, but our perception institutionally is that tenant is not bringing rents up for the 75,000 square foot user. That has a smaller need, smaller operation, thinner margin, et cetera.
Yeah, that tenant had as you know, such a huge global expansion. Their business need outweighed their.
I don't know who it is. I'm assuming I know who you're talking about.
And that's a tenant, by the way, that has since.
Is it Amazon?
Yeah, that's a tenant that has since sort of retrenched a little bit, and in the last couple of years has given space back. Has not necessarily but throughout the country has scaled back space that it was looking for at the time. Stopped negotiating on deals throughout the country. So it's not, I think, a fair comparison, but I understand why you make it.
What's question on the benefits that were the sales tax portion of that? Is that prorated for 1 billion, or is the entire sales tax package
Just for that building. Some of it was common, when they made their purchases, it was combined 2 buildings. So then they have to do an analysis and which right down in front of take out.
So for that building now that's paying full tax rate, is it a competitive market rental rate there? Or is it paying higher than someone typically?
No, it's a competitive rate. There have been rents higher.
So, and not to belabor the point, because my colleagues have already made it, but the whole basis of what we make that determination on is whether there's a need in order to make the project happen. And would it happen otherwise, but we're getting the benefits that we have. And when the applicant came here, it was controversial project to begin with. The question was done, and many meetings to get us through the process. So it was debated at length, and on more than one occasion, it was reiterated to this board that project can be competitive, and that would market way without the assistance, and I wouldn't be successful. And then before the tenant even gets in there, obviously we understand it's the tenant that knows the fact that we get out of the benefits. But we've now proved to us that that was not accurate, that you can charge a market rental rate on that building and that facility without any benefits, full tax rate, and you can be successful. And that's a greater public benefit if we were to give you the benefits, because now that's a full tax rate going to the school district, going to the county, going to the town. We all know in the high tax area, that's what we want, more commercial taxes to help offset these costs of services. So I don't see how we can now, go ahead and say, well, this building next door is any different. We're in the same location, same market. Obviously, you have to go to, to protect the tenant and divvy up the space. But it's not the tenant saying we can't afford the market rate we try to charge. It's the job component. So they're kind of separated, in my opinion. And I think when you get the benefits or not, those jobs are going to be paid. So whether your promise is 250 more than that, it's my position that I don't think you need any of the benefits in the first place. You're still going to realize those benefits, jobs, taxes. So I just I find it hard. Obviously, I didn't support the application in the first place. So I don't think anything before us now is going to swing into this.
Mr. Barry, don't take this personally, but how does a company your size, $15 million company, make such a mistake?
I don't think it was miscalculated. Well, I certainly no one predicted a pandemic. And we heard Mr. Catapano explain that, and I reiterated it as one of the major factors here. We had top-notch local real estate professionals help us gauge the market. I think we at the time spot on in terms of our anticipation of the types of tenants we could get and the needs of those perspectives.
And what has changed in the meantime?
Well, I'll give you my thoughts, and Alfred can share his thoughts. But my thought would be, again, we have a pandemic which, for a short term, really spurred some industrial growth through online acquisitions, purchases, shopping. But the economy in general has sort of retrenched after that, and leasing velocity everywhere is slowing down, and interest rates are a factor. Construction costs are a substantial factor. So things are slowing down as we come out of the pandemic. But Mr. Alfred might have more technical
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the best way to describe it is the velocity of transactions of tenants interested in leasing space has slowed tremendously. So it's become a very competitive marketplace to secure a handful of large industrial tenants active on Long Island. I'm not talking about 10 or 20,000 tenants. I'm talking about 75 to 125 that I described earlier. And as a very competitive marketplace with millions and millions of square feet planned over the next 5 or 6 years across Suffolk County, I think we're going to have a little bit of an issue on the industrial market. It's becoming extremely competitive amongst developers to secure tenancy. And without a pilot agreement in place, the tenants will go to a building where at the same rent or at a higher rent where the taxes are lower.
Yeah, and that's a factor too, is there are projects now that are online that were not online when we were here getting our and as we described, we were hung up for a year. We didn't anticipate trying to cooperate with our neighbors. So I think all of those factors lead us to where we are today.
So that being said, your comments don't give me much confidence. They seem to be pretty nebulous. So what is the number?
What is what number?
The number you proposed to us is this number. So is that number going to change to say on the state of the industry so that a year or two from now?
The job creation number?
Job creation.
And maybe I don't know the rules or the laws, but I thought 250 was the minimum, but maybe not. But So I wasn't sure we could go below that, but, no, I think 250 is a very, the size of the building and one tenant that's in there now, other tenants that we're speaking with, and the jobs that they would create is one of the first questions we ask: how many jobs do you think you'll bring to this space? So we do think we can get to 250 fairly easy, with the remaining square footage and tenants.
So this proposal that we
Yeah,
have.
so I think Mr. Alpha.
Can I just want to add, as we both said earlier, we both believe that it's going to be over 250 jobs. The pushback that we're getting from tenants now, let's say there's 100,000 tenants with 100 jobs, and they say, what's your pilot? And we tell them, they say, well, what if you don't have up to 500 jobs in the rest of the building? The pilot will never take place. Now my lease becomes much more expensive than other alternatives. So our issue isn't that we're not going to have a lot of jobs in this building. The issue is getting a tenant to sign a lease without a pilot agreement in place, or without relative surety that a pilot agreement will be in place in the future. And as we both said, we think we'll be over the 250 jobs. It's just, there's risk to the tenant when the job number is at 500 that the pilot will never kick in. And now we're having trouble getting that tenant to commit to the space, simply because there's risk.
Like developers, real estate investors, lenders, tenants want certainty. And that's what we hope to provide them with this request.
So the size of your company and your reputation has been able to basically reassure tenants that are looking to sign a lease that you will be moving forward to the best of your ability. Your track record speaks for itself.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we have a great track record with tenants, and I hope Mr. Elson today could confirm that. But the reality is, no matter what our track record, no matter what our reputation may be, we can't promise that one of our tenants is going to create a certain number of jobs. We can't promise that 4 other tenants that haven't been signed yet will create the aggregate number of jobs. That has nothing to do with our reputation. It has to do with the nature of the tenants that we're speaking with and the multiplicity of the tenants we're speaking with.
Well, that goes back to the question regarding your expertise in the field as developers. You didn't realize early on that this could be a problem in leasing space.
You approved it, did you?
You asked for the benefit.
I get it, but no, nobody, my point is.
You agreed to the number because I'm sure you thought that you could make that case without it being a problem.
And I'm sorry to be glib, but nobody anticipated, again, the pandemic. Nobody anticipated the inflation or something, I guess, that resulted, or the interest rate hikes. I mean, this is an economy that's, I think we all would agree, is very, very unique and rare. And we're in circumstances that are very, very unique. So it's not a situation in which there was a miscalculation. It was an inability for anybody to predict the future.
I have just.
Oh, no, Sonia, you can go. I'll go after you.
Well,
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
please.
want to kick the cow.
No.
I come to kick the cow. When you guys came to us at first, I'm trying to remember the right thing. Were you the company that had the problem with the subcontractors or the contractors and the union and everybody was the Long Island first?
Well, we complied with Long Island's first policy. Before there was some, I think, concern on the part of some people that before we ever even applied to the IDA, we used I forget where they were from. It was New York State, but not Long Island, demolition firm to
Was it the
demolish the
same
building.
project? This was for the same project, right?
Yeah, so they demolished the old Newsday building for us, and then once we came to the IDA and we were told there's a Long Island first policy and signed it, we complied with that. I think
So you-
staff has confirmed that since then, yes. But that, again, that was before we ever applied to the IDA for anything.
Okay. Okay.
And as I said, the work we're doing at this moment to subdivide the space in the building for our first tenant space is all, it's being done 100% by a local contractor.
So the way I see it is we have an agreement, we want a modification agreement, there are uncertainties that prevent us from coming to an agreement with these uncertainties, how many jobs. So what I would suggest, assuming we can do this, staff can put together is we create a deal that the more jobs you create, the more benefit you get. And the less jobs you create, the less benefit you get. So you get to 250 jobs, then figure out what the tax break per job should be, get to 300, get to 500, get to 600, maybe more than in the proposed amount. That seems to make most sense to me because then we're not dealing with uncertainties how many jobs.
Assuming that's within the parameters of the law that enables this type of thing, that and of course, that will be the details, but yeah,
No, it's a very interesting concept. It's not one I've come across, but I see no legal impediment. I mean, we have right now, we have a gap between what is the right size of the benefit, if benefits going to be granted, versus the other side is, do we want government dictating what business should do? This is the robust conversation there. That can be worked out. I mean, that really can, and it would have, just like any recapture, to have definite benchmarks that must be obtained, and if not, then we go a different route. But
yeah,
that may be an interesting point to investigate.
Really, if I could, Melissa's one as well, and could respond because she wrote the documents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, it sounds like what Greg was proposing is a pilot that would be in any given year dependent on the number of jobs. Is that accurate? Or would it be an adjustment?
Once the building is stabilized.
Once the building is stabilized, we have the number.
Okay. So if that's a suggestion, what I suggest is that we go back and take a look at how we can do that. It would be, in terms of getting, certainty to the taxing jurisdictions in terms of what they would be expecting in terms of pilot payments. We would want to make sure that everybody was comfortable with how that works, and making sure that works under the IDA's UTEP.
How would that work with the rents? I know, nobody's answering right now because we're trying to think of a new idea, but the applicant is saying that there's uncertainty. So the floor is 250 and 250 is the minimum, and we're starting at the minimum. I guess we could have chosen another number, but
Maybe they will.
right. But I guess my point is that if I'm a tenant, my rent is this, and it could possibly be lower. But how do you structure a rent agreement where the rent is going to go down? I'm not.
It's a tax. Pilot goes down to contributions to that.
It's sort of how I'll tell you without saying too much about the lease that we have in place now. It effectively says, look, we have an abatement, but we're not making any representations. If we meet the threshold, you'll get the benefit of the threshold. If we don't, you'll be paying conventional taxes. And I think that's not very appealing to prospective tenants who want more certainty. But if there's a floor on the job numbers and a corresponding change in the abatement, at least at some certainty, and I defer to our broker on how appealing. It's probably not ideal, but not ideal for you either. And so for us, probably a compromise that is.
You set the number, right? You got to do 200, but if you do 300, you're going to get X off. If you do 400, you're going to get X off, and everyone's encouraged to create a job.
Yeah. I would ask the board's indulgence if that's something that the board is willing to consider. Give us till the next meeting, maybe to discuss it, figure out some of the numbers and come back. I think it's a good idea and a fair compromise. Again, the details be worked out.
I mean, I know what I would suggest, but for board members.
I get it.
That's.
So we don't really, my mind keeps going to, if they came in, they want, there's 250 jobs, what would the IDA benefits be?
This. 15 years, 65%.
And we would have, I think the board would have approved it right at the start.
So the policy that we used is someone creates 50 new jobs, they're entitled not a 10-year term, but a 15-year term. So they're creating 250 and they're a 15-year term. But the starting point is 65%, not 50%. And again, look at the percentage of the savings. It's not a lot because again, it's 60-40. So it's 60 is the land tax. It's not abated at all. 40% is the building. So it ends up being a 14% abatement over 15 years. That's, I mean, usually we're like at 27.5% savings. So you're like well below. I mean, this one's different. I mean, this is really interesting how it's so heavily loaded with land value, land tax as opposed to building. And it was the same way when it was Newsday. The Newsday building, the land was more taxes than the Newsday building itself.
I hear that and I appreciate that point. But it's not somebody we don't know. And it's not somebody we don't have history with. And that history, and again, it's accuracy of outcome. That's a concern to me. And I know there was a conversation before about foreseeing the future. The only reason these things were built is because everybody believed they saw the future, like the world changed, everybody thought they were right. So there was some foreseeing the future, and it was wrong. So I'm happy to table this until such time as we can see, is there something that, like you suggested, Greg, that works between the applicant? But I'm not entirely convinced that benefits are required for this project. But I'm open to hearing, perhaps there's a middle ground that we can strike that addresses these concerns at that time. So I don't know if we're done talking, but I would support the motion to table it if there is one.
If I may. I mean, I guess, the big question is, and you just said you're not sure if they even need benefits. I mean, I'm of the position, I don't necessarily think they do. Maybe we should come to that fundamental decision first before we go creating all kinds of hybrid policies that we never had before. And as you said, get more complicated than we need to. I just feel that these jobs, whether it's 250 or 500, whoever ends up there, they're going to happen whether we provide benefits or not. And they've already shown us that they're capable of doing that. So why are we withholding more taxes from the public when it may not be necessary?
The jobs may very well go to other projects. So that's, look, I'm the one negotiating with these tenants and some of the projects that are being considered are not even in Suffolk County and others that are in Suffolk County, if without a pilot agreement, which almost every new industrial building makes this project not able to compete with other projects. It makes it very, very difficult to build a building.
The building right next to it, where you're doing it.
Amazon leased millions and millions and millions of square feet all around the country, including 215,000 feet in Syosset, where the rent is $38 a foot net, and they waived the pilot agreement there that they had in place because they didn't deal with the employee issue and they were short. Amazon has waived IDA benefits all over the country. So it's such a unique tenant and situation with Amazon, where Amazon went through, until about 18 months ago, the past decade, with their rapid expansion around the country, that it's I hate to say it's not comparable, but it's really not comparable to any other transaction that I've worked with on Long Island. And I've done probably the largest industrial deals across Long Island, including, 2 million square feet of sales to Steel Equities and Bethpage that got 20-year tax abatements from Nassau County and the sale of AIL to Tanger Outlet and AIL relocation down to Ronkonkoma. I've never done any of those transactions, I don't think, without IDA benefits. It makes a project non-competitive in the market. It will make it extremely difficult to lease this building, notwithstanding the Amazon lease next door, which, as I said, is an anomaly.
When I asked you before, is Amazon paying a competitive market rate? You said yes. It would indicate that they're paying astronomically higher, because they got rid of the IDA benefit. They're just paying more than anybody else. I mean, they're paying the competitive rate in the area.
They are, but they waived the IDA benefit months after the lease was signed.
I mean, what was the projection guard? But what was the number of jobs?
$150. Something like that, 175.
Yeah, I
I
think,
think it was 175.
yeah, and the number on the South building was lower, right? It got increased, I think. My recollection is it got increased to 500 when we.
Yeah, because to keep the 20.
Right.
Keep the 20-year term, they needed to have.
So
500
so this was approved, had a lower number than 500 originally.
Well, yeah, it was 500 total.
Right.
Plus the two buildings.
Yeah, it was like 175, 325.
Yes.
Again, but since it's the split is 64, it's so in favor of land use, there is no 3%. Creation of 250 jobs. It's not costing a lot. It's a good deal.
I made that point earlier, right?
27 and a half. I think Tony figures what the funds length. This is at 14. So.
How many jobs were created on? Or how many did you create on?
Well, they're in operation there. I don't know that number. I simply don't know.
Okay, so that building that was terminated was what, that 175, and then this building, the South building, was 425, 600. But again, the minimum to keep a 20-year property tax term is 500 jobs. That's how we locked into that number.
There was always 500, right? Tony, it was 500 in the first project, 500. It was the building we discussed.
What was it? The original was 600 to 800, I think. So 600.
The projection, the 600 was the obligation.
600 was the right. Was
Right.
The floor.
And this building was
The
425.
two buildings. Because the 175 plus 425 is 600.
And when we changed it, if I remember correctly, this building took all the jobs.
Correct.
So there was no change. It was just a transfer of one to the other, and that was the closing document thing we did in.
Well, minus 200. So it was. The South building was supposed to have 425, but in order, they had to add 75 to that total.
20 years.
To have a 20-year process.
So it did go from 600 to 5, 600 when there was two buildings to 500 on one building. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Plus the jobs that were created, I don't know the number, but in the North building.
Amazon has a lot of part-time jobs in that building. The reason they often waive the IDA and the employment requirements is because their warehouses are so automated today. They cost hundreds of dollars a square foot to build out the interior of the space with conveyors and automation. So Amazon and many of their new warehouses don't have a ton of employees. They have a lot of drivers and part-time employees, but full-time warehouse employees has been shrinking as they become more automated, which is why they waive their IDA packages in a lot of buildings.
So Amazon is the sole occupant of the North building. So if we can come to an agreement philosophically that Amazon, as per your history regarding how they're dealing with real estate nationwide, is a special, unique animal. Maybe we can come to an agreement here regarding the South building, tabling the issue, since you're going to be dealing with a different type of animal in the South building, which is going to be multi-tenants. And we can come to some type of arrangement where we can figure out exactly how to structure the benefit as for what Greg said.
So with this.
I'd like to. No, I think if we can come up with a plan that's an incentive plan, if you other projects as well, to encourage job creation, but and let's see what happens.
Problem with that is there's a lot of moving parts. Government is like, this stuff is not. Already that complex.
It's not working.
I know, but
We're still, it's not like a real estate developer.
it's like expectations. What do we get when I get to my budget? So they budgeted. It's like school districts are calling us on that. So like this was the floor. The minimum was 250. So if they feel comfortable that they would be able to achieve that. So everything else.
Yeah.
It seems like it all works.
I appreciate the creativity. I think it's a great idea. I'm still going to have certainly for the first 2 or 3 leases that are signed, the trepidation of the tenant to take the risk that you're going to get to that threshold, right? So if you made it on an individual tenant by tenant basis, probably that would work, but doing it on a building, I still have the next tenant that's going to sign saying what happens if you don't get there. So that's really where we're having the pushback from the tenants is, what comes first, the pilot or the tenant? And in this case, you're asking for the tenant. It's very it's, there's risk to the tenant, and that's what you're trying to mitigate, not eliminate, because 250, I think, is something we can achieve, but we're trying to mitigate that risk to make it easier to fill the buildings. Getting a lot of pushback, frankly, because other buildings don't have that issue.
So originally, the building, you were planning on renting it as one space, right? So now, because of all the things that happened, you have to break those spaces up.
Chris.
So to be clear, I'm just asking for the threshold of 250, and you deal with it.
That's what we're asking for currently.
It's just the lowest 250.
And then we recast the percentages. So that instead of burning off it, I think it was 3-ish, it's like 4.3%. It's higher, so then that's
Bring it all faster.
yeah.
So I know you said before that you were in full compliance for it now. So I take it this isn't an issue. We table this for 30 days and get our own act together.
I think the only issue is for Mr. Halpern here is trying to get tenants in the space. So that's the issue. But I think, I think at this point.
I mean, obviously,
I don't want to make your job harder than it is already.
I would love it if you said yes, and we can go forward and I'm fairly confident we will be well over the 250, but we have an empty building, as you pointed out, that is certainly costing Hearts money, but more importantly, it'd be good to get it filled up and occupied and create the jobs that want to be doing.
Sorry.
Right.
The part that I'm struggling with, I feel like we got to a point that was a good spot, but then we keep talking and it keeps getting worse. It's hard. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not a real estate person, so I trust you. And you said we've been doing this since 1985, so we've forgotten more than all of it. But it's hard to say I can't build a project without IDA benefits, but I can't rent it because of the IDA benefits. Like I don't know how to square that. Like I need the project, which I've already built. I need to keep the IDA benefits to rent it, but the very conditions of that decrease are the things that are preventing me from renting it. So do you understand how, from my perspective, like that sounds like we're having our cake and eating it too? Like I don't know, like I don't understand that.
I don't think that's, if I apologize if I spoke in a way that led you to believe that we're not, that we, if you misunderstood what I said, I think we're having trouble getting, because there's a threshold in the IDA packages that's current formed of 500 jobs. We're having tenants not Phil Halpern, not CVRE, and not Hearts. Tenants are taking the risk that we don't get to that threshold, and they don't get the IDA. The IDA benefits never takes effect. So their rent, including taxes, it's a net rent, but when you add the tax on, it would be higher than every other competitive project that have IDA packages and pilot agreements in place that don't have those employee count.
So I just want to, for the record that all IDAs have what's called the UTEP, a uniform tax exemption policy. And in that policy, it clearly states what the parameters are for the number of years for the pilot, for the jobs. Brookhaven absolutely requires jobs, not at this level.
Not at this level.
Again, we have very few projects that are at 500 plus. It's unusual. It is a very high number. And we don't dictate to our clients what those numbers are. They come to us and then we see where they fit within that UTEP and rarely deviate from the UTEP, although that's accepted as well. But I can assure you that any industrial projects in Brookhaven have job requirements.
They do.
They're just
I'm sorry, they're much
but
lower.
it's misleading, and for us, it's important that we have the right.
I apologize. Yes, they're much lower.
Okay, so what is the pleasure? There's been discussion about tabling motion.
Yeah.
Are there any other motions at the time?
I'll make a motion to just cancel the entire agreement. I'll also just see where everyone is on that. And go home because everything else.
I don't think there's any legal basis to do that. Compliance with the agreement as it stands.
I think our choices are move this request, deny this request. Okay. Yes, Josh, I'm not arguing. I agree. I don't know that I can get to yes, but there's been a creative solution suggested. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but I think it's worth to take a look at it and evaluate it. I may still be no, but I'm happy to support the motion to table. I think it was motioned and seconded at
Yes.
this point.
Point of order, do we do tabling motions first?
Sure.
So there's a motion and a second, all those in favor of tabling,
Aye.
any noes or abstentions? Matters taken.
Thank you. Do appreciate your thoughts, comments, and I guess we'll be in touch with that. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Brian?
yeah, sorry, twice in our discussion today, mentioned long-term residential. Long-term is different than other places, and then Kelly just talked about job requirements being different than other places. If staff could put together kind of what that looks like, because I've never seen that, so Kevin said that Brookhaven would offer different terms based on this than we would, and then obviously when the gentleman from CBRE mentioned that the job, you clarified that. If I could look, if we could see that, so 250 jobs from the Suffolk IDA gets this with this requirement, but 250 jobs from the Brookhaven IDA gets this from that requirement. I don't have a good context. Are we richer or poorer than other places? In terms of the benefits. I know probably less than Nassau, which is a different thing. So if there's a way to show us kind of what on Long Island those benefits look like and where we are in comparison to those, that'll be really good.
Thank you. Okay, should we go on to the next item, which is Spagnoli, the Boys Millville LLC?
Thank you, Sarah. So this was a project back in 2016. Boys Melville LLC is also known as whitehouse.com. It's an e-commerce company. And we visited them several times, Kelly and I. I mean, it's like a tech company, and you're sitting on big walls with, one day we were there March 14th. It was Pi Day, it was March 14th, right? 3.14. So, it's all about that and team building and camaraderie, et cetera. So this is their corporate headquarters here. So the project, the documents are really kind of twofold. It's with Spagnoli, the landlord, and also Boys Melville EBA Supply House. And so as a result of the COVID pandemic and, the changes in the workplace and remote and all, so this is their corporate headquarters. They have 175 jobs at the corporate headquarters in Melville. They don't need all the additional warehouse space that they were using for team building activities and recreational activities, like the weight room. They had deck hockey, badminton, all the.
Can you just describe the chairs again?
I think our chair is asking for an explanation of it sitting on big wall.
Those yoga balls?
Wait, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's always, there's actually quite a bit take it right from Brian said. So they met the requirements for the number of jobs they're creating. Now they're going to lease out space to another company that's going to create more jobs.
No, so Spagnoli this is Gary Krupnik.
Yes, Spagnoli met its job requirements.
Right.
On the program.
The floor is 100.
Right, they made that. Now they're going to rent out some of their space to somebody else who's going to create more jobs.
Right. Two other tenants.
Great, is there a motion?
Sounds like
say
a
something.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Congratulations.
Okay. Minutes. Let's move on to minutes.
Very entertaining.
Yes, yes. Is there a second? I'll second, or Kevin will second. All those in favor? Okay. Great, 2 abstentions, note the 2 abstentions on the minutes. The 2022 draft financial report.
We met in committee for the IDA subcommittee for finance. Presented by Sheeran and Associates. We checked if any explanation as to what was what. So the board went ahead, subcommittee went ahead and unanimously approved the full recommendation.
Is there a motion to approve the financial report? Second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Any noes or abstention? It is approved. I make a motion to go into the executive session. Council, please explain what.
Yeah, well, one second, just because we're going to go over employment issues, which are subject to executive session.
Thank you. Taking a motion to come out of executive session. Is there a second? Thank you, Kevin. All those in favor? We're now on the record.
Thank you. I have some news. I decided to retire. About 60 days. Give us a chance to transition and have it a little more seamless for the agency. And I want to thank the current board and also the past boards and the current staff and the past staff for all their help and support. It's been a pleasure working with all the board members through the years. The work that you guys do is incredible. No one really realizes it. Maybe because it's live stream now, maybe the public has a chance to see what you guys do. But I just want to thank you for letting me be part of it these years. So thank you.
Yes, please.
Sure.
Yes.
Tony, I know you okay. Absolutely. And I learned an awful lot. I know you put a lot of time in here and you've been very students to and and I'd like to say something to Tony as the longest serving board member who's known you quite a few years. You know, I hate to see you go. I know you're going to enjoy retirement. I'm enjoying it now, so I know you're going to enjoy it. But the reality is we became working partners, but over the years we became friends. So congratulations on your retirement. Best of luck to you and your family. Good health. Yes. And much success.
Thank you.
I echo that, Tony. Having been on the board, not nearly as long as Kevin, but for a while, it's been a pleasure to work with you. And I think we've accomplished some great things. I think you know, we've always counted on you to get these applicants before us and square them away and present everything to us and help us make good decisions and guide us. And it's been a pleasure. It has, and I'll miss you. So good luck with everything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck, Tony.
Tony, I mean, no words. Well, I do have words, but I mean, I'm emotional right now, so you guys forgive me. I remember when Anthony left and we asked Tony if he would consider being the ED and he was like, oh no. And Tony and I went out in the hallway and had a little talk and he accepted the position. You've done well. You've been a friend. He taught me a couple of things. I would call Tony and he would tell me a couple of things that I didn't understand, explain it to me. I appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but success from here on in. Thank you.
Hey, Tony, just certainly want to congratulate you in retirement as well. You know, I know you've been here many decades. It's a noble and not a very easy job, you know, public service, but you know, Suffolk County is certainly better for it. And we appreciate everything you've done. And, my line of work outside of this, we preach a lot about, retirement with dignity and, so you're lucky to have that. Not everyone does, be able to get to enjoy that. So
Thank you.
enjoy it.
Thank you. Good luck, Tony.
Good luck, Tony.
Enjoy the rest.
We worked together for 15 years, and I know you for almost 10 years before that. With you and Bruce, but you here for 40 years. I did my hat. Good luck in retirement, obviously.
Thank you.
I just like to say, I've been with you for 33 years, and you deserve it.
Thank you.
It's only, I'm so shocked, and miss you today. A great voice. You always think of everybody. I know, but I really do. You're a great man, great contender. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, all right. Thank you, Paul.
Huge shoes to fill. You're leaving behind a huge legacy too. You should be really proud of that. I know we will do our best,
Thank you.
known throughout the state.
Yes.
Everyone knows Tony Hannah, absolutely.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, again,
Your service.
congratulations.
That I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
and that's for the same reasons we previously been in executive session or. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? We are now in executive session. All those in favor? We're now on record. I'm going to turn it over to agency counsel, William Wexler.
Okay, the following resolutions resulted in executive session, and I will bring them to the board one at a time, and Chair has to vote on each one of these seriatim. The first is to accept the retirement of Anthony Catalano.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Motion carries.
The second would be that to grant the retirement date that Mr. Catapano sought of June 27th of 2023.
Is there a motion?
Motion by Sarno.
Second,
Second.
Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Motion passes.
Third would be to appoint the agency's audit committee to determine Mr. Catapano's scat pay, meaning his sick time, vacation, to fix what that compensation would be.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the third or the fourth resolution would be to appoint Kelly Murphy as acting director to assume all of the responsibilities as a director.
Motion. For a second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next resolution would be to fix Ms. Murphy's compensation at a per annum salary of $161,000 per year, which is the difference, exactly one half between her current salary and Mr. Cameron's.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And as acting director, Ms. Murphy will be in charge of setting in duties and responsibilities of staff, and also set the responsibilities as she feels appropriate for Mr. Catapano in his winding down.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
There a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And next is that the resolution to appoint a search committee to seek for the agency a new executive director. And that search committee will consist of chair of Sarah Lansdale, Kevin Harvey, and Josh Slaughter.
Damiani.
I'm sorry, I was having, I was Chris Damiani.
Is there a motion?
Bill, can we have four?
You can have as many as you want. Want to join?
No. My question was 4 out of 7.
Why not? Okay, it's not a magic number, no more.
I just meant open meetings.
No, that's even better.
Okay.
But no, you can have it.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
And then finally, authorize the acting director to expend a sum not to exceed $15,000 for the retention of any professionals deemed necessary to assist her during the transition period.
Motion? Second? Second. All those in favor?
I'm finished.
Great.
Jack's Kelly.
Oh, did we ask people to want it? Well, you know what? I guess you're right, the resolution to determine if Ms. Murphy wants a position and will accept the position at the term stated as acting director of the agency.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Now we're good.
Okay. Now.
Okay, motion
All
to
right.
adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.